And hello everyone, Musclewhite here. Welcome to a short video about the graphics settings in WoW, Mists of Pandaria Classic, to optimize performance and in-game visibility. Let's go straight into the options, System, then Graphics. For resolution, I advise you to use your monitor's native resolution. For render scale, it's going to be important to leave it at 100%, because there is currently a bug, or at least there was a few weeks ago, that reduces performance if you lower the render scale, whereas it's supposed to do the opposite. So, to be safe, leave it right at 100%. For low latency mode, I recommend using NVIDIA Reflex and not NVIDIA Reflex Plus Boost. Next, under Graphics Quality, you have the Base tab, which corresponds to the open world. If you have a recent graphics card, you can set everything to Ultra, no problem. You should get 60 FPS and more in almost every zone. What we're interested in is Raid and Battlegrounds. We'll go to that tab, and if it's not enabled for you, check the box. You have to check it right here. Here, I recommend setting everything to 1, which will put all settings on low. What we're going to do is only increase a few settings that are important for clearly seeing mechanics on raid bosses or in battleground combat. The first one that interests us is particle density. We can set that to Ultra. Then, for resolution, you can set it to high. Spell density is very important. You can set it to minimum. You will only see the essential combat spells and your own spells. This will reduce distractions and increase your FPS. Projected textures are important to always have enabled, otherwise, there are mechanics, for example, puddles on the ground to dodge, that you won't be able to see if it's disabled. So, this is very important, always on enabled. For ground clutter, you can set it to 1 to really have the minimum of visual distraction. Environment detail, you can set to 9. Now, in advanced, there are also a few important settings. Triple buffering should be disabled. I personally disable it because it increases latency. So, very important to disable it. For texture filtering, you can leave it on X16, it doesn't consume a lot of resources, but it helps a little with making textures a bit sharper. Ray tracing, I have it enabled because I have a fairly powerful graphics card. Honestly, you can disable it, there isn't a huge visual difference, and you'll gain FPS. Now, resampling is important. You'll want to set it to Fidelity FX Super Resolution. This is because I'm going to give you a command later that will increase the game's sharpness. So, it's very important to set it to Fidelity FX. For VRS mode, I've set it to standard, so there isn't too much visual quality loss. I haven't had any issues with it so far. For the graphics API, I recommend enabling DirectX 12 if it's not already. I believe some of the options below are only available with DirectX 12. Also, in the compatibility settings, you can check all 4 boxes. Now, to minimize latency, what I've done. I have a 360Hz monitor. Honestly, I don't need that many FPS in WoW. So, I've capped them at 120 FPS. You can see here that I have a G-Sync monitor. I've enabled vertical sync, which doesn't impact latency in this case. If you don't have a FreeSync or G-Sync monitor, I recommend disabling vertical sync and only using the in-game FPS limit. I set mine to 120, you can set it to 144, 160, 200, whatever. It's up to you, but I find 120 is a really good compromise. Also, very important, contrast. I recommend increasing it to 65. It will give you a little boost in colors to make the game look nicer. If you see, if I go back to 50, which was the default, you can see the game is a bit grayish. Personally, I like to increase the contrast a little. Between 60 and 70 is the sweet spot in WoW. I've set it to 65, but it's up to you depending on your monitor. Okay, now let's move on to the little command I mentioned related to Fidelity FX Super Resolution. You can see that the barrels here, the bench, the table, they aren't very sharp. What we're going to do is, I have the command copied. Now you can see that immediately, everything around the barrels has become much sharper. If you want to remove it, you simply re-enter the command and type a 0 instead of the 1. There, it's done. I'll set it back to 1. You can see the difference is quite huge. Without it, it's really quite blurry. So personally, I strongly recommend playing with it on. It makes the game look better, really much sharper. And then, there is a second command. So, you have the little red question mark. You can mouse over it. Then you go to Latency, World, and Home, and you can see that I have 15 milliseconds. So what you can do? I need to find my macro, here it is, it's console spellcuendo. So if you have less than 30 milliseconds, I simply advise you to set it to 30. Hop. And then, to see that the setting has been applied correctly, we'll go back into macros. Here, there's a second command that allows you to read the value. I'll enter it. Hop. And there, you can see it says, dump value. It's correctly set to 30. That's the value I just entered. What this does is it reduces spell buffering, basically, when you press your keys quickly. So, lowering this value will make your game feel slightly more responsive. I think the default value is around 100. I recommend you check yours. I'll put the commands in the description. So what I do is, I go to the little red question mark. I check my latency. Here, I see I'm below 30, so I set it to 30. I don't recommend going below 30. But there you have it, let me know if you feel a difference with these changes, and see you soon for another video.